He fired me at 7:58 a.m. The boardroom door hadn't even cooled from the night air when his words cut across it. His tie was crooked, his eyes full of the arrogance he'd inherited, not earned. He leaned back, smirk tugging his face like a boy who thought cruelty was clever, and said, "Consider yourself history." I nodded. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I simply folded my final paycheck, slipped it into my jacket, and walked out with the quiet dignity he mistook for defeat. 30 minutes later, a courier walked into that same boardroom. A single envelope, a single line inside. And by the time the company lawyer read it aloud, the room had gone silent. The lawyer slid it across the table to the CEO, his father. The old man's face drained of color. He whispered, low but clear, "You just triggered the founder's reversion clause." That was the moment the laughter stopped. I remember the first time I met him, Michael, the golden son. He was still in college then, visiting the office with his father. He had a handshake that felt limp, but a smile that convinced everyone he was destined for greatness. The staff adored him. I did too, in those days. I was naive enough to think loyalty mattered. I had built this company beside his father. Late nights, unpaid hours, dreams stitched into contracts. I wasn't family, but I worked as if I were, and the founder noticed. He drafted a clause no one else knew about, buried in the bylaws, locked in with signatures that time forgot. A safeguard for me. Years later, when the son inherited influence, I noticed the shift. The boardroom that once echoed with strategy now stank of cocktails and ego. He'd arrive late, talk loud, forget names. But worse than incompetence was contempt. He thought respect came with a last name. The betrayal wasn't sudden, it dripped. First, the subtle slights. Then, assignments stripped from me, given to his drinking buddies. My reports ignored, my counsel mocked. He called me the relic, the one who had stayed too long. And finally, this morning, termination. A theatrical firing meant to humiliate me in front of the staff. He wanted applause, validation, power. Instead, he gave me leverage. I didn't storm out. I went to the bank, deposited the final paycheck. A clean ledger matters in war. Then I waited. The clause would do the rest. You see, when his father and I incorporated, we wrote the condition into the charter. If any founding executive was terminated without cause, their equity reverted. Not just the shares, but controlling interest. His father trusted me enough to give me a safeguard. He must have known one day arrogance would topple his bloodline. All it took was his son's mouth to trigger it. The courier arrived at 8:32 a.m., a man in a gray suit with no expression. He placed the envelope before the lawyer and left without a word. Inside was a notarized notice, a single line. Pursuant to Section 14, Clause 7, termination without cause activates full reversion of equity to surviving founder, effective immediately. The lawyer froze. The CEO read it twice, then again. His hand trembled as he set it down. The son didn't understand at first. He laughed, thought it a prank. But then the board members began whispering, reading through their copies of the bylaws. Their faces turned grave. Phones came out, clauses searched. Confirmation after confirmation. Control had shifted. Not to the son, not even to the father. To me. I walked back in at 8:47 a.m. No invitation, no announcement, just the weight of silence as every head turned toward me. Michael's smile faltered, his arrogance collapsing into confusion. "You can't be here," he stammered. "On the contrary," I said, sliding into the seat he'd stolen from me weeks before. "I'm exactly where I belong." The lawyer cleared his throat. "Effective this morning, Mr. has assumed controlling interest." He didn't look at Michael. He didn't dare. The son's face went red, then pale. His bravado bled out of him in real time. The board avoided his eyes. Even his father stayed silent. For the first time, the boy understood power. It wasn't noise, or insults, or cruelty. It was contracts, patience, timing. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't gloat. I simply laid out the future. Departments that had rotted under his mismanagement would be restored. His friends would be removed. The company would return to the discipline that built it, not the recklessness that nearly sank it. And as for him, I let him stay seated. I didn't fire him, not yet. I left him in that chair, shrinking, suffocating in the silence of his own irrelevance. Because true punishment isn't exile. It's watching the kingdom you thought was yours thrive in someone else's hands. At 9:03 a.m., I ended the meeting. The board members filed out, whispering relief. His father didn't speak. He just gave me a look I couldn't read. Shame, or perhaps a sliver of respect. The son sat frozen, jaw tight, fists clenched. I leaned in, close enough for only him to hear. "You wanted me gone," I said quietly. "Instead, you made yourself history." I left him with that. Now, hours later, I sit in the same office he mocked me from. The city hums outside, steady and indifferent. My name is etched back onto the door, as if it never left. But everything has changed. I don't feel pity. Not for him, not for the father who enabled him. This wasn't vengeance born of rage. It was justice, written long ago, waiting for its moment. And when that moment came, I didn't need to raise my voice or break a sweat. I just had to wait. Patience is the sharpest blade, and today it cut clean.